Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing classical conditioning, also called Pavlovian conditioning. Classical conditioning is a type of learning in which a neutral stimulus acquires the ability to evoke a response that was originally triggered by another stimulus. This process helps organisms adapt by associating different stimuli with specific outcomes. Before we discuss the experiment, let's understand some key terms. A stimulus is anything that can trigger a physical or behavioral change in an organism. A neutral stimulus initially does not produce any specific response. A response is the reaction produced by an organism in reaction to a stimulus. A trial in classical conditioning refers to any presentation of a stimulus or pair of stimuli during the learning process. So, the theorist behind this classical conditioning is Ivan Pavlov, who was a prominent Russian physiologist known for his Nobel Prize winning research on digestion. While studying saliva's role in dogs' digestive processes, he discovered what he called the psychic reflexes, which are the responses triggered by the stimuli associated with food rather than the food itself. Here you can see an image which shows the classical Pavlovian conditioning setup. The apparatus measured dogs' salivatory responses to different stimuli, including devices to present food, ring a bell as a neutral stimulus, and collect saliva for precise measurement. So, the procedure of the experiment begins by observing the dog's natural reactions. Before conditioning, the dog salivates in response to food, which is a natural reflex. However, when the bell rings a neutral stimulus at this stage, the dog does not salivate. This sets the baseline for learning to take place. During conditioning, the neutral stimulus, which is bell in this situation, is repeatedly paired with the presentation of food. Each time the bell rings, the dog receives food shortly after. Through this repeated pairing, the dog begins to associate the bell with food, leading to the development of a learned response. After conditioning, the dog begins to salivate in response to the bell alone, even when no food is presented. This learned response shows that the neutral stimulus, the bell, has become a conditioned stimulus capable of triggering salivation. To summarize, classical conditioning involves pairing a neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus to elicit a conditioned response. Initially, the neutral stimulus does not trigger a response, but through repeated associations, it becomes a conditioned stimulus that elicits a learned behavior. Now, let's review some important points in classical conditioning theory. Conditioned means learned, while unconditioned means not learned. An unconditioned stimulus naturally triggers an unconditioned response. This pairing is innate and does not require any training. During conditioning, a neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus through association with the unconditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus then elicits a conditioned response, which is a learned reaction. Although the unconditioned and conditioned responses may look similar, the conditioned response happens naturally while the conditioned response is acquired through learning. Okay, now let's define some key terms. The unconditioned stimulus is a stimulus that naturally evokes an unconditioned response without prior learning. The unconditioned response is the unlearned automatic reaction to the unconditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus is a previously neutral stimulus. Through conditioning gains the ability to evoke a response. The conditioned response is the learned reaction to the conditioned stimulus that occurs due to prior conditioning. So, in our experiment, the US or unconditioned stimulus is the food, UR is salivation, CS is the bell, and CR is salivation. Okay, classical conditioning theory, being one of the important theories in learning and psychology, helps us understand various real life phenomena such as the development of phobias and post traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, where certain stimuli triggers some strong emotional reactions. On the other hand, classical conditioning also explains how positive emotions and dissociations are formed. So, in conclusion, classical conditioning is a fundamental learning process that explains how organisms learn to associate stimuli and develop new responses. Pavlov's pioneering research laid the foundation for understanding behavior and has wide application in psychology and everyday life. So, thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching.